Long tasks are often the most daunting to consider, but you might be surprised at how quickly they come to completion when given an hour here or another there. Of course, it helps when the task is not directly blocking anything, but that doesn't change the volume of work, only how it is distributed. This task was one which required a mixture of dedication and patience, but thankfully isn't a common task when doing renovations. Older houses sometimes utilize a kind of plaster designed specifically for finishing walls. It's remarkably durable stuff, but fell out of favor in modern construction because sheetrock, also called drywall, is much easier to work with. It took us a while to realize that this was more of a plaster than any kind of sheetrock. Plaster walls have to be mixed like concrete and then applied quickly, requiring specialized tools, specialized labor, specialized material, and extra time. Different crews produce different levels of quality, with a lot more opportunity for things to go wrong. When they do, plaster takes extra time to repair, and in my case, an incredible effort to remove. The outer walls of the house are going to be preserved in the renovation, so unlike with the inner walls, each one will need to have its plaster layer scraped off. The first challenge was to determine the best way for this to get done. We started out with a hammer and chisel, but quickly realized that this approach was inefficient, even if it did work. So we upgraded to a Bauer hammer drill from Harbor Freight. This tool was pretty effective and enabled a much faster progress compared to hand tools, though its progress was a large strain and produced a lot more dust than other methods. This meant full safety kit, including a respirator, long pants, and a disposable shirt. The clothing actually fared well, with the dust cleaning off easily at the laundromat each week, but the tool presented a few downsides. The long power cable was a persistent tripping hazard, and was awkward to manage during overhead use. The chuck also tended to slowly spin under its own vibrations, causing the chisel to constantly move out of position during use, a fact which required correcting by hand every few minutes. After a few days working with the Bauer tool, I decided to try the DeWalt cordless hammer drill and found better success. The DeWalt tool is lighter, more compact, and offered excellent maneuverability overhead and at floor level, making it the preferred choice for chipping out the plaster. This tool was not perfect though, and tended to run as hot as the Bauer tool during extended use. It also abused the high-capacity battery packs we have, and could eat through 2 or 3 before lunch. This worked out, since the batteries became the measuring bar for daily effort. Each morning, I would set a goal to use 2 batteries, amounting to around 2 hours of work. After the second battery died, I would stop for the day, clean the drill, my respirator, and change clothes before switching to the other tasks that needed attention that day. This process continued for a couple of weeks as we finished off other tasks that I will cover in future videos. Some days, higher priority tasks took the whole day. Others, I put a little extra time down if I knew that there weren't other demands that needed attention. I found that it was best to be flexible when it comes to things like this. Rather than hold yourself to some hard commitment, it's more important to make progress each day on something. As long as the ball moves forward, even if it's only an inch, then you eventually get done. Of course, you're going to have sick days, injuries, family concerns, and other life events, so finding a balance that works for you is important, and everyone's schedule flows differently. But the principles at play are sound and result in excellent progress when measured over time. Plaster is dense, noisy, and messy to extract, so it's best not to overlap other tasks in the same workspace. Working room by room made this easier since the interior walls could isolate most of the hazards. After a few chipping sessions, it was usually necessary to spend an hour shoveling out the fragments and sweeping the floors to keep things under control. It was also necessary to take time at the end of each session to clean and maintain all the tools and equipment being used. My 3M respirator is fitted with nuisance dust filters, which are best changed in pairs that cost about $10 a set. Over the course of a week, I usually needed to change the filters at least once, but the respirator mask needed to be wiped out each day, inside and out, to keep the seals clean and visibility high. I wear a sun hat to help keep the dust out of my hair and away from the face seals, since it could make your skin itch and, when mixed with sweat, formed a mud that was hard to scrub off. Even with all the protection, it was still necessary to shower most days before changing tasks, or especially before going to bed each night. Hearing protection is absolutely essential when working with equipment like this, since it's running at full power a few inches from your head for hours at a time. I favor a set of earbuds with noise isolation ratings so that I could listen to podcasts and audiobooks while I worked. This helped greatly to pass the time, since chipping doesn't require a lot of focus. But any set of OSHA-rated hearing protection is good enough for what we're doing here. You do have to be very mindful of the angle of your chisel and the width of your selected bit. I tended to favor wide bits with a short shaft, but switched back and forth between a 2 and a 4-inch chisel depending on how the plaster behaved, as some areas were denser than others. The most important thing to avoid is blowing through the underlying block, something that both hammer drills were easily capable of when not being careful. Work boots are also a good idea, since the fragments occasionally broke off in heavy chunks that could cause injury through lighter or thinner shoes. I used a set of Ariat boots, but any thick leather work boot will still work. Steel-toe boots are nice, but I did not find them essential for this kind of task. Be aware of the duty cycle for each tool you're using. Chipping like this is hard on just about any hammer drill. If you start to smell the grease in your tool burning, find time to stop or slow down. Both the DeWalt and Bauer tools are vulnerable to overheat failure. The Bauer tool blew a grease seal and stopped hammering, while the DeWalt tool had its hammer module seize up. Both tools were covered by their respective warranty, but the loss of each tool represented the loss of otherwise usable labor time. My parents continued to advance their own parts of the renovation in parallel to my own efforts. As we continued approaching the removal of the roof, my job was not to finish all the chipping, just get as far as I could before the trusses arrived and we could get everything started in earnest. But that, like other parts of the renovation, are something for a future video. See you all soon.